Yo, what is going on, everybody? It is Brave Cat here with another earthquake update, and we're going to be going through quite a bit of stuff, including solar flares, space weather, and volcanism. So, we have our last 7 days here, and again, this overlay on the Earthquake 3D program is provided by Dutch Sense, and this is all for educational purposes. So let's get right into it. There's been quite an influx of activity here, but first I do want to actually check in on the space weather. So this is NOAA. This is a government website, which, as you can see, this site will remain updated during the shutdown. Funny enough, yeah, this is pretty much the only government website that is staying up to date because it's the most important by far. And I mean that just tells you all you need to know right there. That space weather is what we should all be paying attention to. And even if it's not about fully understanding it, I know not everybody can. Shit, I don't. But again, this is a very, very important stuff to pay attention to. So, what have we had going on with the sun? Well, we've had multiple X-class flares and an M7. So we've had several, pretty decently large events, and these are partially Earth-facing. This is on the Earth side. So we just hit play on this. I don't know if this will actually show all of it. All right, we're looking up here. Okay, now this shows what is this, the last 2 hours, three hours maybe? Okay, well that's kind of lame. Because yeah, it would be nice to see those, but we have a coronal hole stream here, which is, already affecting us, and then we have actually four different solar flares. So if we go here, this is a bit easier here. I would recommend checking this out if you are interested, because, okay, it's not like Armageddon is happening, but the chance for a actual solar kill shot is more than 1%. So I would call that significant. So we've had some KP index geomagnetic instability, and we haven't even actually been hit by everything yet. So these solar flares that are on their way. So if we look at the X-ray flux, see, when I looked at this a week ago, or even less than a week ago, there wasn't really much going on here, even though there was far side blasts. And now, this has been spiking into the M-class range and now into the X-class range. So, these three main events here, all right, none of these have actually impacted us yet, but we will see that here soon. We have the solar wind data and all of that, and you already know the auroras are going to be spiking. And this has to do with earthquakes as well, because these solar particles, right, and I'm not talking about the visible light, not even the UV light, because those things, the visible light that we see, only makes up for less than 2% of the total solar particles that get emitted. So we're talking about X-rays, we're talking about protons, electrons, everything. And so that, has an electromagnetic effect on everything on Earth, because we live in an electrically charged universe. Electricity, plasma, frequency, vibration, this sort of stuff that, Tesla told us about the last century. So these things are impacting Earth, the biosphere, the ionosphere, the mantle, everything above us, everything below us, as well as our own biogenetics. It's all being affected by what is happening on the sun. And again, with the weakening of the magnetic field, these solar particles are able to impact us easier. So, with all that out of the way, Look at Kamchatka, look at the deep earthquakes. All right, we can look at what's happening on the west coast. We can look at what's happening volcanically, and I'll be going into that here shortly. So, what's happening here in Russia? So there's a 4.8 up here, and I believe, it appears that a lot of this resurgence of activity, this hasn't stopped, but it's increased again with the swarm of earthquakes here, and these are going to be in the 4 to 5 range, and there's even a couple 6s, so pretty significant. And we're looking at the last 7 days. Most of these are more recent, including a 6. So, and this is following the deep earthquakes that happened south of Japan. So we haven't had any new deep earthquakes here, which is good. And this kind of just follows back, traces back to the cluster here, some of the deep earthquakes here, south of the Philippines, and then, of course, all of these deep earthquakes here. So what do we have littered in here? It looks like 5.4 looks like the biggest deep earthquake, and that's let's see here if we can get a better look at that. So, okay, we got this 5.4 and 5.5. So these are both pretty deep. Let's compare the depths here. So this one here, it's above 500 kilometers. And let's take a look at this one, a little bit shallower, probably like 490 or 460 or something. Oh, 313. Okay, so that one's not as deep. But still, again, these are going to relay the pressure spreading out from these deep earthquakes. And even down here, south of Australia, we've got a couple of mid-range 4s that have come out. So what this means is, pretty much the whole Indo-Australian plate is moving again. And so, again, these things are kind of hard to predict right now. It is possible, all right? Earthquake forecasting is a thing. But, I'm not really going to do a whole lot of that here because I'm not truly an expert. I'm just here as an observer. So, but what we can do is we can look at the middle areas, the quiet zones, and the places in between these sets of earthquakes to expect some of the newer activity. So, I'm hovering right here. This is a pretty big quiet zone, and we have all these deep earthquakes here. So, I would think we could expect some probably mid to, 6, maybe, 6 level activity potentially around here, but be on the lookout for something, right? So since we have so much activity spread around kind of everywhere, these middle areas are going to be a bit harder to locate. We have fresh activity going up here south of Japan, and some activity right here. So actually there's like a small kind of swarm area here with some basically multiple 5.0 activity, upper range 4s. So, luckily these by themselves aren't going to be cause for tsunamis or damage for that matter. But it's something to look at because it means that there's an influx of pressure coming in here. So I would definitely keep eyes open there. And so let's go to the US. So let's start with the Canada feed because, that's kind of a huge gap in the data that we need to figure out what's going on. So I'm just going to go to the 0.0 and greater because seems to be possibly some finicky things happening with the data in between these different feeds. So let's just cover it all. So this is the last 30 days. So again, it's kind of makes it harder to correlate these things because the the USGS data is the last 7 days, and Canada is the last 30. So it's kind of hard to line those things up. But I guess we can kind of guesstimate here, like, okay, 4 weeks and a month. So we'll just drag this date slider roughly a quarter of the way. And hopefully that'll be roughly the last 7 days. Looks like we've actually had some bigger activity, again, up close to the Arctic Circle. I would say activity happening up here is a little bit more rare, but it's also kind of like how the Mid-Atlantic Ridge is, where these letter X's are, where the pressure of the earthquakes tends to kind of close itself out. So we see that happening up there further north, and this just looks like a mess. So let's drag it down to about 4.0 activity. So as we can see, there's 4.0 activity going along the west coast. This is up in Canada, so we know there's stuff going on up there. So let's go back to the USGS feed, and where, again, we have another 4.0 off the coast of Oregon. And let's drag that all back where it is. And, we can see that activity pretty much following down here with 2s and 3s and the tremors that we see. So I haven't looked at the tremor map yet, but I'll be going through that here momentarily. On the inside of the plate here, looks like we have had another small uptick. So we got 3s and, clusters of 2s in these areas. And, this spot in Texas, this has just been consistently going off. Like, there's no randomness here. Like, this is just consistently happening. Let's take a look at a couple of these, actually. So let's close out of those. Let's go ahead and look that one up, and let's look one of these. So, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Let's just take a look at this one. So, okay, this says New Mexico, but, it's technically still in Texas. Hey, if that's see, it's even from the Texas seismological network. So these earthquakes geologically happened in Texas, and yet these are being listed as New Mexico quakes. Why would that be? Well, your guess is as good as mine. But I would say maybe they're trying to hide earthquakes and skew the data. So whatever. Let's take a look at these. So we got Google Maps open here, so let's just take a look at what's in these areas. See what kinds of potential weak points in the crust might be contributing to this release of pressure. And we don't even need to zoom in. We don't even need to move anything. There's some oil and gas drilling operations here. Pretty massive. We just got here, and look at this. So you see these pads. Well, you zoom out, they're everywhere. I don't really know what we're doing fighting for oil in the Middle East when we seem to be the ones that have all the oil right now. Just look. This stretches on for miles. You can just zoom in somewhere else, and there's more. You can zoom out. You can go way the hell over here somewhere, and you're still probably going to find stuff. Oil and gas is a huge operation. And I don't even really have anything against it. I'm just saying, I'm not just saying, but look. All right, this is where the seismic pressure wants to be released. That exists. Let's look up this other one. New Mexico. Sure. So it's just, okay, I don't know why I did that. Did I copy the wrong thing? That's funny. Okay. So let's get that. And let's get that. All right, so over here, because I mean, I've looked this area up multiple times. There's not as much happening over here in terms of those oil and gas drilling operations. But it definitely looks like an interesting area geologically. You know, you got some weird looking things around here, but again, really just kind of taking a peek. You know, we're just taking a peek at it because it's there. So that's what's happening kind of down there around Texas, and there's more earthquakes spread around here. I'm actually, now that I've looked at those, I'm actually kind of curious. So we're just going to look up a couple more spots because there's not really that many more earthquakes here. It'll only take a moment. So what's going on over here? Let's see, anything at all? Got some sort of little pond, cesspool, whatever, who knows? Who knows what any of this is anymore? Let's see, what is this? So, this is Kansas. I don't know much about Kansas. It's funny because it looks, I mean, Kansas is supposed to be the flattest, basically the flattest state in the US. And the only place where an earthquake is striking over here is where things don't look very flat. So you got these lakes, you got these small mountains. Interesting. So yeah, we're just, again, taking a peek. So, all right, so that's kind of some of the stuff we got going on over there. Let's take a look at the tremor map and simultaneously take a look at the 0.0 and greater so that we can get the full spectrum here of the tremors. So, yeah, we'll just kind of take a look at the last couple days on here. So, I mean, it looks pretty similar, you know, here in California. Ongoing swarm north of San Francisco, and then down south we have our other, well, I wouldn't really say, I mean, this whole area is a cluster of tremors here, and if we looked up all of these, we'd probably find some features like, you know, dormant volcanoes, little buttes, other little fissures in the crust, weak points. So we still have plenty of tremor swarming happening there. Now let's take a look at this. So let's see, let's just take a look at what we have in the month so far, from the 1st to the 4th. So let's just take a look. Alright, so again, it looks like the tremors up north have just absolutely stopped existing entirely, and the swarms are moving south. So that is interesting. So off the coast of Oregon here, right off the coast, is where that the 4 struck. We've had some other 4s in the past weeks. So, oh, all right. So yeah, we've had another uptick. This last 4 days here seems to be kind of on a downtrend again, but still a lot of tremors, a lot of movement, a lot of pressure being released. You know, most of these are above 1.0s. You know, sometimes you see a lot of 0.1, 0.2s, but these are all pretty much above 1 magnitude. So, you know, as far as tremors go, you know, those are pretty moderate. So, what else here? So, again, let's kind of loop back with the space weather here. So this is spaceweather.com. And so we get a little bit more of a peek here. We can actually see the sunspot groups. All right, so taking a look at it from this point of view is actually pretty important. So when I looked at this in my last update, there wasn't much going on. There was like one sunspot over here, and it wasn't even complex. But over here, see now this, all right, this is the region of the sun that is putting off solar flares right now. And as you can see, these sunspots, they're a little bit more clustered, all right? They're a little bit more complex. And so that's what causes the actual flaring, is when the different polarities of sunspots, so that these actually have their own magnetic polarity. And so just like when you push two magnets together, they're either going to want to push each other away or attract each other. And so when you have these two magnetic polarities pushing each other away, it's quite literally pushing an entire plasma filament off into space. And that's what a CME is. And as we can see here, these sunspot groups, and these change all the time. So if this was like, if we were looking at this as like as a video, we would be seeing these sunspots morphing and changing constantly. So, but just from this still image, we can see that these sunspots are definitely ready to flare, and they have been. So that's what we got going on there. Now let's take a peek what we got volcanically. So this is volcano discovery. Again, just for educational purposes here. I don't know if there's like any copyright or anything or whatever, but I just want to show this because the Smithsonian is down, and I think I like this website a lot more than the Smithsonian. There's actually a lot more relevant data, and it's actually being updated because it's not a government website. Which, by the way, with this whole government shutdown thing, I just want to just kind of add in, like, it's kind of funny how, the government shutdown allows them to stop paying people, and yet we as American citizens still have to pay taxes. If the government's going to shut down, if they're going to stop paying people using our money, why do we still have to pay our taxes to them? Can anybody answer that? So, okay, anyways, before we go completely off track, we can see that there is, still a lot of ongoing volcanic activity. So we can just kind of take a look here, down here in Mexico, Central and South America, again, has a lot of them. This is the whole Ring of Fire. We have some of them on the Alaskan island chain, and okay, we'll have to go over here, and here's Kamchatka. So, we're looking here. This whole peninsula here has a chain of volcanoes. I really need to get some food after this. I don't know if you can hear my stomach rumbling. It's because I'm using all my brain cells right now, so. But okay, we got several volcanoes here. It just seems to be like just adding more to the mix. Even here around Japan, and as we go into the Indo-Australian plate, it's just volcano central. So this definitely, again, has a correlation to everything else. And again, there's volcanoes that have been dormant or ancient and not doing anything for a very long time, and suddenly we see all these things popping off at the same time. So, that kind of just rounds it all off. Very quickly just, blasted all that out. So, actually, okay, we have completely ignored half of the planet of earthquakes. So, okay, let's kind of finish off here as we go into Asia and Europe. Again, this is like kind of Afghanistan area, Middle East. Still activity going on here, like this, where this letter D is, where these arrows are kind of wrapping in here. There's still quite a bit of activity here. There's a 6 and a 4.9. Let's do that. Oh, there's actually more than that. So there's some slightly deep activity to go along with it, and some more 4s. And then these kind of go up here. We got Western Turkey, the same spot as usual. Except now, instead of having tremor cluster swarms, now it's just 5s. So we got 4, we got a 4.9, and we got a 5. So now that has taken a uptick in activity from swarming tremors to now swarming mid-range earthquakes, and that goes in here. We got a 4.2 coming in there, and well, let's see what the European feed has, because the USGS doesn't really cover that stuff unless there's anything significant. So let's go with the middle feed, because the other two seem to be absolutely, utterly useless. Okay, well, whew, man, oh wow, look at that, Western Turkey. So, okay, it does still actually have the insane cluster of tremors, and, okay, so, you know, I really dislike how some of these feeds are ran. So again, we go to Europe. These are just the last 100. All right, there's no time frame. And when we have all these tremors in here, that takes up space, right? So if there's 90 tremors happening here, I don't think there's quite that many, but you know, this is taking up most of the feed. So if there's anything extra happening over here in the rest of Europe that's more significant, well, it seems like it's just going to be blocked out by the dozens to hundreds of tremors that are just constantly happening here. So that just seems like a very poor way to do the feeds. Like, you know, just do it how the USGS does it, where you have 7 days, you have various filters, and it's just simple, and it works, and you can actually see what's going on. All right, you look at the European feeds, last 100, like really? You know, at this point, it's kind of useless in certain regards. You know, you can't get the full picture because, you know, anyway, so there does seem to be an uptick here, especially in Italy. And again, you know, we got Campi Flegrei. Oh man, I cannot pronounce things right now, but we got the volcano that's in Italy. Oh, that's like, I think right around here. So again, I don't know if this is going to show everything that we need. But there's twos and threes spread around. So that's what we can see happening there. And I believe that will kind of wrap things up. So again, we're looking at these solar flares. We're looking at these deep earthquakes. So there does seem to absolutely be an uptick in activity across the board. And again, with the solar activity, we can also expect some more turbulations in the mental and physical energies. So, you know, you might be experiencing some more aches and pains. There might be some irritability. You might see more road rage. All of those things. So, but anyways, I think I will wrap things up there and catch you all in the next one. I will just leave things out here playing this again.